Hi, I'm Pam Thompson, and I'm an instructor for the International Institute for Restorative Practices. Today, we're going to do a regrounding of the social discipline window as well as the restorative practices continuum. Recall that the social discipline window is made up of four quadrants, and that has two axes, control and support. So when you have high control and low support, you're being punitive and doing things to people. When you have low control and low support, you're being neglectful and not doing things at all. When you have low control and high support, you're being permissive and doing things for people. And when you have high control and high support, you're being restorative and doing things with people. Now, you want to be restorative in the with quadrant all the time on purpose. But we're human, so that's not always going to happen. Maybe we don't feel well, or we're feeling stressed, or there's an external factor that happens that throws us off our game. But what's important is for us to be able to identify which quadrant did we fall into and what needs to happen to bring us back into the restorative quadrant working with people. So the social discipline window is the cornerstone of what we do. People don't have processes or outlets or rituals to live Tompkins' blueprint. Restorative practices allows that to happen along the continuum, both proactively and responsively. The restorative practices continuum demonstrates maximizing positive affect, minimizing negative affect, minimizing the inhibition of affect, which is really just allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and doing all of these things as much as possible. So the social discipline window, the restorative continuum, goes along from informal to formal. And we want to make sure that we're doing 80% of our work proactively, 20% responsively. As we move from informal to formal along the continuum, it's going to include more people, it's going to take more time, more preparation, and it's going to be more structured. So we're going to start with affective statements. Those are brief statements that talk about the impact of one person's behavior on somebody else. Usually they're I statements. Affective statements encourage people to clearly verbalize how they're feeling in relation to another person's behavior. They provide feedback, they set boundaries, and they teach empathy. Affective statements can be both proactive or responsive. So you can say, I'm really excited about the fact that you got all your work done, or I'm really concerned that you keep coming in late every day. Affective statements can also go beyond I statements. So to live Tompkins' blueprint, it can be a statement that simply maximizes positive affect and minimizes negative affect. So it can be a statement such as, wow, what a beautiful day it is today. Then you move to affective questions. So there's two sets of questions that are asked of somebody who is responsible for a behavior, and then there's a set of questions that are asked to somebody who's on the receiving end of the behavior. And again, these questions can be used both proactively and responsively. So affective questions are open-ended questions. And so for the person who is responsible for the behavior, you would ask them, what happened? So what were you thinking about at the time? Who has been affected by what you've done? How have they been affected? If it's a proactive situation, you can ask, so what needs to happen? What do you need to do to continue doing this in the future? If it's a behavior that has caused harm, you would ask, what needs to happen in order to make things right? If you're on the receiving end, the questions that you would ask would be, what did you think about when you heard what happened? What is, if it's something that has been positive, it would be, what has been the best thing for you? If it is something that created harm, it would be, what has been the hardest thing for you? So these are just questions. They're open-ended questions. And again, you want to focus on the 80-20 ratio. Small impromptu conversations are just conversations that can happen in the spur of the moment. You're not going to take a lot of planning with them. You can see something happening and then just kind of help facilitate a conversation. And again, it can be proactive as well as responsive. Circles will take a little more planning, and depending on what kind of circle that you're having, will determine the amount of planning that you do. Again, here is where you really want to focus on 80% of your circles being proactive and 20% being responsive. So you want to focus on circles that are building your community, building your social capital, building relationships in your community. So you'll start, if it's a newer group of people together, you'll start with much lower risk circle questions. They can also be check-ins and checkouts. They can you can use circles to develop norms. You can use circles for people to talk about the achievements that they want to work on and what they might need from people in this circle to achieve those, to reach those goals. You can also have people assess themselves, use it for course content. People can assess where they're struggling, where they need help, what they can use the other people in the class for, and you can use it for actually delivering content. When you get to a formal conference, that is the most structured and formal part of the continuum. And that works with bringing together people who have caused harm and people who have been on the receiving end of harm, bringing them together on repairing the harm. So I hope that this has been a great regrounding for the continuum as well as the social discipline window. And I hope that you have really kind of reviewed of how you can continue to live out Tompkins' blueprint in our restorative practices continuum. Thank you. Bye-bye.